Hey everybody, this is Jeremy Carlson, and you are listening to the Bluegrass Sports Performance Podcast. Today we are talking with Coach Mark Garrett, head strength and conditioning coach at Crown Point High School, and Connor Andras, the Associate Director of Athletic Performance for football at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Coaches, how are we doing today?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Hey, so this is a good first for me as I'm interviewing a coach, well, two coaches, but one used to actually work out with the other one. So this is going to be exciting to be able to get you guys both on the podcast. But if you guys could start, give a little bit of background about who you are, where you're from, and all that good stuff, and we'll go from there.
I grew up in a small town in central Indiana called Cloverdale, and I went away to Maine on the advice of Bob Knight to play basketball, and then came back and got a job at Milan High School, which is the school from the movie Hoosiers. And part of that job, a PE job, was 2 periods of strength and conditioning. And I was lucky enough to live near Cincinnati and Louisville, Kentucky. And there's a lot of good strength coaches in those areas. Dan Dalrymple, who ended up with the Saints, was at Miami of Ohio. Dave Armstrong was at Xavier. Paul Longo and Jake Flint were at University of Cincinnati. Joe Ken was at Louisville, and so I could jump in a car and go see things and learn a lot real easy. And that was, the big break I got there, I guess, was just living in that area where I could learn quickly. So, yeah.
Well, I grew up in Crown Point. Met Coach Garrett when I was in 8th grade and started the athletic development for middle schoolers. I mean, lifted all throughout high school. Was on the Olympic weightlifting team, which kind of made me fall in love with, strength conditioning to begin with. When I was in college, I did an undergrad at St. Vincent Sports Performance in Indianapolis, working with a lot of different groups. And then I was fortunate enough to get a graduate assistant position at the University of Indianapolis for 2 years. Worked with 6 or 7 different teams. Once that was done, Coach Garrett helped me go down to LSU with Coach Moffitt. I was there for a year and a half and worked with football, baseball, beach volleyball. And then one of my coworkers, Connor Neighbors, got the head strength job at University of Louisiana. And he called me and I was there the next day. And I've been there since January of 22. So just finished my 2nd year. And that's my journey.
Awesome. Well, so again, interesting to see how two different paths to being a strength and conditioning coach. And what I've loved about doing this podcast is that you can get coaches that have gone both ways and have seen a lot of enjoyment out of both of it. So, Coach Garrett, you've been in the game for how many years now?
Well, my first I got to Milan in '96, and I got my first strength and conditioning class in '98.
98. So we're on 25, yeah, 25 years. I'm doing it.
Long time.
Long time. We'll go 20 plus years. There we go. We'll go with 20 plus
People
years.
ask me, like, how do you do this for 20 years? I'm like, you don't. You do it one day at a time.
Fair enough. So what made you want to stay at the high school level? What was your interest in doing that? Because clearly you've sent other coaches and helped them develop to be directors at the collegiate level. What's made you want to stay at the high school level?
Well, like I said, I got the job because I had done bench press, squat, and deadlift, and I could coach basketball. I hadn't gone to school for a CSCS. I mean, there weren't even a lot of CSCS running around at that point, and I was continued to coach football, basketball, and weights. So I've been pulling 12-hour days forever. And no one's ever asked me about a CSCS or anything else. It's like, see your results. And so in a lot of ways, I'm just not, I don't have the alphabet after my name to go up.
Fair enough. And so with how are you still right now in your current role coaching other sports? Or are you just in the weight room right now at Crown Point?
Since I came here, it's been full-time weights.
Okay.
We're a school of over 3,000 kids. We have over 20 varsity sports. We probably have 1,000 athletes. I know I I have over 90 per period, 7 periods a day, plus morning, plus at least 2 sessions after school. So I'm lucky to get out of here in under 12.
Wow, that's impressive. That's a lot. That's a big school. I didn't realize Crown Point was that big.
Yeah.
That's impressive. And then, Coach, what about you? What do you oversee? I'll try to do this in like segments here, so we can keep bouncing back and forth. What made you want to get into the college realm? Again, you were fortunate enough. Not everybody has a great strength and conditioning coach at the high school level. What made you want to go and focus on the collegiate level as opposed to stay at the or go into the high school realm?
Well, there was a little bit of back and forth on what I wanted to do, but I like being around the like high level football, being able to see some of those guys come through and be able to train them and get to see them go on to, the next level, hopefully the NFL, and seeing where they came from when they walked in the building to where they finish out their 4 years is kind of why I got into it, why I love it. Going to LSU really changed it a lot for me because there was a time where I wanted to go to high school, and then being around that caliber of a team and seeing, all the different cool places that we went, like Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Alabama, things like that. That is what kept me interested in, college football.
Yeah, absolutely. I gotta imagine that's got to be a unique experience that not everybody gets to partake in their life, right? To be able to travel around, especially when you're at LSU, getting to go to all of those SEC schools, all of the bowl games. That's got to be a unique way of seeing things. Again, something I've never seen. So that's got to be cool.
I got to imagine being at a night game in Death Valley in Baton Rouge has got to be one of those.
Oh,
the real
absolutely.
moments,
Absolutely. That's one thing that my dad and I talk about all the time. My parents I'm originally from Seattle, Washington, moved to Central Kentucky to go to Center College. And then I kept sticking around. They can't get rid of me at this point. But my dad just moved out here and he loves college football. And we're finally, I'm going to put it in quotation marks, in the South, being in Kentucky. Yeah. And he still wants to go to all the SEC schools. And so we've been talking about that, see if we can make that happen in one of these upcoming falls, is just to be able to start picking off some different places to go. Cause I got to imagine that's a really cool experience. Not only, cool to go to, but I got to imagine being on the field for it is it even more. So let's talk about training a little bit. Talk to us a little bit about what your all's training philosophies are and maybe who has influenced them.
Okay. Well, obviously being ushered into the world of Olympic weightlifting has obviously been a big part of that. Again, I ran into some people along the way that really went out of the way to help me. I ran into, I would just, again, I'm going to go see guys, and I started volunteering. The guy that ran USA Weightlifting was the executive director, happened to be from Indiana. He was Bobby Knight's old strength coach. And it was up in this area. So I would take a day off school to help and just come up and help set up for the meet, just whatever you need me to do, move bleachers, move platforms, build platforms, whatever, to host these national meets. And in turn, he introduced me to guys like Mike Bergener, who, really helped me out a lot. And he's the one that turned me on. So he's like, you remind me of a young guy I met in a cafeteria down in Louisiana. His name is Tommy Moffitt. You want to look him up. He's at LSU. I mean, he's not Notre Dame or anything, but he's at LSU. So that's I reached out to Tommy Moffitt at that time, and he was nice enough to answer some crazy high school coaches' emails going all the way back. And then Leo Totten from East Coast Gold, Totten Training Systems, he invited me out to his place for 2 weeks in the summer one time, and went out there, and he had a weightlifting camp and stuff, but he took me through my level 2 and level 3 courses, brought in college professors and stuff to do it. And so I've had some people really go out of their way to help me, and I'm really fortunate that that's the case. And all I do is, those people never charge me a dime for that stuff. So I've always been just give the knowledge to whoever, to the kids, to whoever.
So listening to those names that have influenced you, how does that impact? Again, one of the reasons that I found you and have followed you for so long, and then eventually reached out to you for this podcast, was because the information that you put out and the videos you put out of your kids doing the Olympic movements or derivatives of the Olympic movements, and them doing them so technically proficient. You can clearly see by the names that you've got there that would probably influence you towards that way. But how have those folks influenced your training philosophy? And tell us a little bit about what that training philosophy is.
Well, we're going to come in. We're going to do an Olympic lift. We're going to do a strength movement, and then we're going to do antagonist training. I mean, in short, which we call injury prevention, and that could fall under a lot of different things. We generally do a mobility lift, which is going to be like an overhead squat. We may call it an RDL, a mobility drill at certain phases. But then we're going to hit an Olympic lift. That's going to be a snatch emphasis day. It's going to be a jerk emphasis day. It's going to be a clean emphasis day. And then we're either going to front squat, which would be our primary lower body strengthening exercise, back squat, or we're going to bench or military press, whatever. And then we're going to pull ups and rows, or we're going to do deadlifts or whatever afterwards. Do a lot of our unilateral training on turf, on using prowlers and lunges and things like that. That it's kind of hard with groups of 90 to do a lot of really technical unilateral training. So we'll do that more in a group setting on a turf or something.
Awesome. Then, Coach, what about you? I'll keep bouncing it back and forth. Who's kind of impacted you? Hopefully, we say the guy that's sitting next to you. And then who else? And then how has that impacted your training philosophy?
Yeah, obviously him sitting next to me, and then Coach Moffitt down at LSU. Just seeing what he did specifically for the football team and the success that he's had really influenced what we do now and how we program. Because my boss now played for Coach Moffitt at LSU, played fullback, okay. And then that was one of his first full-time jobs was under Coach Moffitt. So we take a lot of what they did and apply it to our team as well. But it's the same thing. Like we're trying to keep it as simple as possible. Now, with just the football team, before every lift, especially during off season and summer training, we'll start on the field, either do acceleration or max velocity work. Now the bigs who I'm responsible for, we do more acceleration. We won't really touch max velocity because it's not necessary. And the mids and the skill will do their max velocity work, and we split that Mondays and Thursdays, and then Fridays on the field we'll do conditioning. We'll do that afterwards, whether it's repeat sprints or we'll do prowler pushes, metabolic circuits, things like that. But when we're in the weight room, it's the same thing. We'll start early in the week. We'll start with snatch, we'll front squat, and then we'll do accessory work. The Tuesday will be more upper body focused. We'll bench. We'll do a jerk progression, and then we will bench press and do all our accessory lifts along with single leg. And then Thursday we're back to clean emphasis day. Actually, those two are switched. Sorry, we'll do Thursday's upper body day, and then Friday we'll do our clean variation. We'll back squat, and then we'll take them out on the field and do our conditioning. It's really set up the way Coach Moffitt had it set up for years on a 4-day split. Just to hit everything. But nowadays with spring ball and OTAs during the summer, we kind of have to be careful with, burning the candle at both ends with how much we're doing with those guys, because they're also doing a ton out on the field football wise, not just with us like it used to be.
How many hours a week are you typically getting them, or how many hours a day? I don't know how. Again, NCAA rules, you got to break it down a certain way. Division I, how much time they can spend, different things like that. So how many hours are you getting them?
Off season, I believe it's 8 total.
Okay.
And that's just with us. So we'll do 5 days a week, and they'll be about an hour and a half long.
Okay.
And then in season, we have, which that's also spring ball. We have 20 hours with them, but we have to split with meeting times, practice, treatment, everything like that. So we get 20 total hours throughout the week
Gotcha.
when they're
Okay.
in spring ball and fall.
So do you see that in the when you get into that in-season time and you got those 20 hours there? What does your time come down to? Are you moving from like an hour and a half? You're moving now to 45 minutes. What does that typically look like?
Yeah, it's usually about 45 minutes. You know, we basically, as much as I don't want to say this, we kind of supplement, you know, the practice. We have to. Football is the main priority.
Yep.
Whereas in the off season, you know, lifting and speed development is the priority. But we usually go from about an hour and a half to down to 45 minutes, and we'll lift twice a week instead of, you know, the 4 to 5. And then we have our developmental lifts on Friday for those non-travel guys, and that's when, you know, we actually really get after it with those guys.
So you're looking at 2 times a week for your guys that are playing significant minutes, and then those that are going to be still developing, probably not getting as much minutes. They're going to get a third workout in with you all, and probably one that they're going to be able to hit a little bit harder just because they're not seeing minutes on that Saturday.
Correct.
Awesome. Coach, what does it look like for you? You already alluded to it a little bit. You got 90 kids in a class setting, and you got some that go before, some go after. So I'm sure, tell us a little bit about how that class structure is set up then.
Our schedule is set up. We have 2 traditional days, so like 45-minute class periods, and that's on Monday and Friday. And then we have 2 days of block, which runs about 75 minutes. Okay. So you get them about a total of about 3 hours a week in class.
Okay.
Now football starting January 8th will come back in for a couple hours on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And probably what I plan to do here is we'll do all of our strength work in class, and we'll do the Olympic stuff after school, and like the speed mechanics and acceleration stuff after school too. I'll split the groups. We got like 2 hours, so we'll probably start with the skill guys on the speed stuff first, and then bring them in, and we'll start the O-line, D-line guys, box guys on the weights first, and then send them out
awesome.
to the other group, because we're really blessed. We got 31 platforms and we got 50 yards of turf here at the school.
So, yeah, that was gonna be my next question for you. Having to deal with 90 students, what is the setup in your weight room look like? And since you've been there, has it grown and has it changed?
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. When I got here, it was I think there was 36 pieces of hammer strength and 10 platforms. So day one, pull out hammer. No knock on hammer strength, is just not what I do. And I built literally in the bed of my truck, I built 10 more platforms. So we went from 10 to 20, and the hammer strength started getting moved to a barn, and then we started doing what we do. So yeah, we have 31 platforms now, which equals I can go, so 3 people per platform. I can go up to 93 people, and that's where we're cut off. Now we have freshmen too. And all the training is dovetailed. So if everything's on a clock, everything fits within a time segment of class. All right. So, but it may be older guys doing sets of 3 at 80%, and beginners are doing sets of 5 with a body weight exercise, but they're all doing a derivative of what everyone else is doing, and they're being built into ever more complex things. Our beginning program is called Prepare to Train, and that's literally body weight squats, learning to hold your body in a hinge position, 90-90 split squats. They learn to press, they learn to bench, push-ups, and then block zeros, where we add the barbell, and they learn overhead squats, front squats, RDLs, deadlift off block. And then when they get to block 1, so now you're talking 2 months in, we'll get to, so month 3, they're going to be starting the Olympic. So they'll join the rest of class, and we do our Olympic drills, but they do them unweighted unless we just see a kid that's very physically mature, and we'll let them start to add some weight. But they'll start learning the power snatch and power clean, power jerk with the bar in our block 1. So the first semester, they don't really add any weight on the Olympic lifts unless it's a guy like Connor here who was already doing pretty decent weight in 8th grade. He would come in after wrestling practice, and we just kind of bumped him ahead. Now, he jerked 170 kilos in high school, to give you an idea.
Wow.
Yeah. He kind of downplayed. He's kind of FCS all-star defensive end in college. Defensive end, right? Yeah. At Butler. So, I mean, he was a pretty good player, too. 6'8" all-state, like linebacker. So,
yeah, that's awesome. So when you're talking about your phases there of training, what you just walked us through, that will happen all within the first semester that they're with you in the 9th grade or 8th grade?
Freshman first semester. Now, if I got football and they'll start in 8th grade, we'll be starting up here next week with the football guys, and they pretty much a little more aggressive. As soon as they look like they have mastered the punch out squat and the hinge and things, we'll get them going on front squats and RDLs and things. So some of those kids are pretty strong by the time they get, their freshman year of football. I mean, you got kids front squatting 225 for 5. They don't do anything under 5 at that point. So.
And do you have a reason why they don't do anything under 5? Is that just kind of a trial and error thing that you found over the years? Is that something that you picked up from someone?
Well, yeah. You go back all the way back to Bill Starr's Strongest Shall Survive. That's who brought in 5 sets of 5, based off A.S. Perelipin's research in Russia with the junior weightlifting team, and he brought in the back squat, the power clean, and the bench press. I never knew Bill Starr, but I knew people that were friends with him, and he really wanted to do front squat, incline press, but people lacked the wrist mobility at that point in the 1960s. They didn't have the wrist mobility, and there were no incline benches.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted the incline, so it was between a bench and between a military press.
Mm.
And the other thing with 5s is you get a good mix of strength and some hypertrophy work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's multiplication at that age, really. It's not addition. It's like the body develops into its the atmosphere it's growing up in. And 5 is just a good mix of exertion and and stimulus. So right. I just leave them there. It's okay to get ahead with the strength stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. So then once they start getting through that kind of first semester, they start getting integrated into class a little bit more. Do you continue to have like levels to your programming? And if so, how are kids moving from one level to the other? Is it, hey, that's looking right, now we're moving them up to the next one, or do we
I move them as a group.
Okay.
And a lot of some of that's just social reasoning. If you take that really good kid, that just gets it early, or they seem to get it early, they may not actually be getting it, but it looks like they do. If you move that kid forward ahead of the group, it seems they start to maybe think they're a little better than they actually are and things. So I wait until the bottom part of the group looks proficient before I move them down to the next thing. So we'll stay at mid-thigh and above knee until it looks pretty good. And then we'll just connect the RDL and the deadlift off the block together and to get them to the below knee positions. And then, once they get up to that point, then I'll bring everybody together and then reteach the ground to the older groups. Spend a lot of time working with the beginners and trust that the older guys remember what they're taught in the past. It's not to say you're not watching them, but you're not watching them as close as you are the beginners. You got to really run a tight filter on those kids as they're learning to make sure you got what you want in the end. So that's the way I do it. Now he's got a very different experience because he's got very blessed athletes. I'll let him talk about it, but they've tried to do some of that and decided to kind of go away from it. Right?
Yeah, Coach, I was gonna turn that to you. Is what does that look like? I know you said that in season, especially, you've got your kind of developmental group, whatever we want to really call them, the guys that aren't going to play much on Saturday versus the guys that are. How does that look like at the college level? Do you guys have some type of system that's tiering them, or are a lot of the guys together?
So we have two different times that freshmen or transfers can come in. So we have the early enrollees in January that come in, and they get thrown into the mix right away.
Okay.
And one thing that I always like to say, especially with those guys, O-linemen don't get their feelings hurt all that often. It's either sink or swim. So they're going to figure it out along the way. Now, obviously, like he said, I'm going to keep my eyes on them more often than I am, a guy who's been in the program for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the entire class comes together in the summer, those incoming guys, last year, I guess it's 2 years ago now, we did strictly incoming program. So they would show up at 1 o'clock, and we broke everything down to bare bones. So they were doing all the basic stuff. They were doing hang cleans from above the knee. They were doing hang snatches from above the knee. They were front squatting. They were doing clean deadlifts, all very simple, basic, GPP stuff at the end of the day. Well, we had to have guys, some freshmen and transfers that needed to play that year. And then we looked back and said, well, they didn't get the type of things that exposure that they needed to be able to play at a high level. They didn't have the same strength levels as some of our older guys did. So this past year is we implemented the sink or swim. We threw them into the mix. Now they were with their own group still. So with the social aspect, they still had that, but they were doing everything that those guys who've been in the program 3 or 4 years were doing. And then, we had some kids where we needed to regress it, which is fine. And that's just kind of how we go about things now. It's just easier to do that because some of those guys are going to be expected to play right away as soon as they get there, whether they're 18 years old or they're a 23-year-old transfer. We got to be able to get them ready to play as soon as they walk on campus. So,
and how many kids are you seeing at your level that haven't been exposed to this level of training, right? We can say that you were probably fortunate in your high school career to be able to have a strength coach that was teaching you these things. So you probably walked in and you went, all right, I feel comfortable with this, but that's not every 18-year-old's experience, and sometimes even transfer experience, right? Depending on the school that they come from. Training philosophies may be different. So how many kids are you seeing at your level that you're having to regress and get them kind of built back up?
So I think we had like 35 incoming guys this past year. I'd say probably 10 where we had to truly regress them. Okay. There was a handful who knew exactly what was asked of them. They could do it at a high level. We were able to progress them faster than the others. But those 10 who you would think that they'd never seen a weight room in their life. And that's when we have to go back to Bergener drills and them using PVC pipes, doing overhead squats and things like that. So it's a healthy mix. Most of these kids have seen a weight room, have done power cleans and squats and things like that. And at that point, it's just refining their technique. And, even if we have to regress because technique is poor, they've still done it at somewhat of a high level. So it's a healthy mix, every year. It kind of changes too.
Yeah.
One time I talking to Coach Moffitt, and I was like, how much time do you spend, working on this? Because they lifted well for a football team. They lifted like weightlifters, a lot of their guys, and he goes, I don't. I'm like, well, I mean, they literally just learned like that. He goes, well, if they're not a good enough athlete to watch it and do it, they're not good enough athlete to be at LSU.
There's probably some truth to that.
That is not what I have been.
No, well, and that's what's interesting, because I've been at both, and now I'm at a small Division III school, so it is a little bit different. But being at the high school realm versus the college realm, you know, the high school realm, they don't know anything. So you get the opportunity, for the most part, they don't really know anything. So you get the opportunity to build the base how you want to build the base, and then that's their exposure to it through the 4 years. And it's probably their first 4 years of lifting, where when I'm at center, you know, they could come to me with a lot of different backgrounds. So having to figure out how all of those moving parts work together and get them up and running so that then they can still be, again, I like what both of you had said. I don't know if you guys have talked about this yourselves, but the social aspect of moving groups together, it's something that I've considered, just never put a word on it. And I think that's a really interesting point, that how they move together through the program. If I know that in my career, I've taken one kid off to the side, and you can see that they're like freaking out that they're the one kid that got pulled off to the side, rather than saying, "Oh wow, coach is really helping me." They're like, "Oh my goodness, my friends are over there, and I'm losing it."
And they're getting a bunch of trash talk to them afterwards too.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. That's So that's
we have to keep in mind that ultimately what we're trying to do is build better teams.
Yeah.
So if we get too individualized, you're killing some of that team aspect that your job is part of it, is to build stronger, better teams. So you have to pay attention to the social aspect the same as any team coach would.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point to make there. Going back to some training stuff, at the high school level, again, 90 kids. Again, we get to hear a little bit about training philosophy, how you're building them, kind of top down and bottom up. But you still got 90 kids. Are you the only coach that's in the weight room with them? Do you got some other additional support?
No, yeah. I have two people that coach with me. I have two other PE teachers. The school has to play their shell game where they keep the student to teacher ratio down. So I have, with 90 kids, that they want to keep that 30-1 teacher ratio. So there's two other teachers in here. They don't really do much teaching, take attendance. And then, most of them are head coaches. So they're actually breaking film and stuff, practice planning and things. But I have two people on the floor too that are both high level weightlifters, so I got some really good eyes floating around. One assistant is probably a top 5 weightlifter. He clean and jerks 140 at a light 67. Wow. He's done 135 at 61. I think his best total ever was 107, 135 at 61. And then a girl, 55 kilos, she made a junior Pan Am team. She was from Bowling Green, Kentucky. She snatched 74, clean and jerked 94, jerked 103 at 55. So she's kind of the female liaison.
That's awesome. And is that something that you've consistently had on your staff or with you?
Nah, I've always been a one-man show, really. I'm still figuring out this whole thing,
Okay.
I started out with me with 25 kids, and then the next thing I know was me and another teacher that had 50. And then it was me and another teacher and I had 75. And then they move us into this great big weight room here. It's really an indoor practice facility. And I'm up to 93 now. So it's really a small school program that's gotten big.
Yeah, that's probably cool to see, especially if you've got, someone that was in your inaugural class, if you want to say, with coach there, and to see what the growth, where it's gone and where it is now. That's a testament to the good things that you're doing there. Have you been able to find creative ways that you can get more help in the weight room, whether that be using, if you want to go, what you've already done with some of those coaches? Are there other ways that you found that you can get help? Because I know, again, it's a unique perspective. You can't just go and advertise for a high school PE job to be in a weight room at all times.
I think we're working on getting another PE position open that we will fill with a legit a legit strength coach.
Awesome.
I have some guys in mind. But one thing I do, I think, is I standardize the teaching process, and then I ask them. We call it see it, say it, do it. All right. So I'll bring the entire group in and teach in detail what we're looking for, and then we will teach them the coaching cues. Like when you see this, here's the coaching cues. So that's see it, say it, and obviously you got the do it part. So I do teach the kids to teach too, and then I really, if I catch a kid doing that, I really make a big deal out of that. That they care, that they care enough to see it and say and do it. And that's one of the kind of standard rants that I'll go on, is caring enough to do that sort of thing. I don't know. Did you say that? Did that kind of stuff help you? Or yeah, okay.
Good to know that you're making an influence on them there.
I don't know. I just
didn't know it didn't go in one ear and out the other.
Well, sometimes.
Coach, give us a perspective of at the college level. Again, it's kind of interesting to have both of these conversations going on at the same time, because I think it helps compare and contrast for those that may be interested in one or the other, or maybe in both, and trying to figure out their path. What does your staff look like that you all have? Talk to us about what that training day may look like in terms of getting groups through there.
So at the college level, you have 5 full-time strength coaches. And well, at the group of 5 level, it's 4. And then we have a player development coordinator who is in the weight room, and he helps me with all of my groups. So okay. I have 4 groups. So how we break it down in terms of when we're in the weight room is every coach has 1 or 2, maybe 3 positions that we work with. Okay. So myself and one of the guys that helps me, we have the entire front 7 of offense and defense. So we work O-line, D-line, tight ends, and outside line. So when we do things on the field, or when we do things in the weight room, it's going to be a little bit more individualized to those positions. Just for example, when we're out on the field, we're not going to do max velocity stuff. We're going to push sleds. We're going to push each other. We're going to pull things. We're going to carry things, while the other groups are doing their max velocity stuff. Mm-hmm. And same thing in the weight room. We're going to train heavier than the skill positions, where they might do a lot more plyos and now in terms of the actual splitting the team up, it's based off their class schedule. Even during the summer, they're in classes, so we have to break it up based off of their class schedule. And we run 3 groups. We go 7 a.m., 9 a.m., and then 1 p.m. We used to do 4, but the 11 a.m. group had 9 people, and that coach to athlete ratio was a little ridiculous. So we cut that one out. And yeah, so we have, the 7 a.m. and then 1 o'clock group is about 50 guys, and then we have 25 to 30 in that other group. And we get them in, we start on the field, whether we're just doing a normal warm-up, or if we're doing our speed development, acceleration, max velocity, conditioning, whatever. And then we come into the weight room, we finish in the weight room and send them off. But it's pretty simple, and once they get acclimated to it, especially when they're first coming in, it's a seamless process. They know all what needs to be done each and every day. So
awesome.
It's different, but
yeah. So speaking of that, with you guys having more resources than what maybe is going to be going on at the high school level, you do have the opportunity to be with those position groups. What does that mean? Again, you're going to be responsible for the things that are going on for their physical development. Are you all helping out? And again, I know this can be school dependent, different things like that, but are you also helping track GPS data? Are you all helping out with some of those technologies side of things to help give reports back to coaches as well?
Yes. So we are fortunate enough to have we have Connexon, which is our GPS, and we have I want to say it's 85 GPS and 85 LPS units. Wow. So we have 170 units that we take care of, and that one of our assistants runs the reports for the coaches. We also have, I think now, 4 force plates at our disposal.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't need 4, but we have 4. But we also run the reports for those as well. The force plate data is more for us. We'll share it with the coaches, but trying to put it in layman's terms and help them understand at a very, I don't know, simple level is tough. So we basically use that, and we change our training based off of what those numbers say. But the GPS data we give to the coaches every single day. So we'll track what we do during the summer, our running, our conditioning, and then we'll also track practice as well. And Connor goes up to staff meeting every day. He gives them a report and says this, that, and the other about what's going on at practice.
Wow, that's cool. So you said 70 GPS, and what was the other? You had 70 what?
LPS. So it's a local positioning system where our indoor, we do a lot of our training and our practices in the indoor because at any given time in Louisiana it's 110 degrees.
Yep.
So we were outfitted with the LPS. We have anchors all over the indoor, so we're able to get all of our GPS data inside as well.
Okay, that's really cool. That's what I thought it was, but I just want to make sure I heard you correctly on that, because that's not a newer technology, but an interesting add-on to what GPS is already showing us, right? GPS is one of those that is becoming more readily available as pricing structures get, more competitors come into it. The pricing structure is being driven down, and I mean, again, we're at the college level, but we only have 5 GPS units that we can outfit with certain teams and coaches that are more interested in it. We use with, but really cool that you guys can do that inside as well. That's
the Connexon is the LPS too.
Yes, okay. We're both. So Connexon I think it's a German company, and they do a lot of soccer and basketball. Yeah. So the basketball kind of helped us as well, because then we were able to get that LPS system and not just the GPS. Because like I said, even during the season, we practice, I guess it's 3 out of the 4 days inside. So having that is crucial for us.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Okay, so then one specific question about the group that you oversee with the O-line, D-line, kind of those inside guys. What data are you collecting? This is just a selfish question for me now. What data are you collecting from the GPS or the LPS? Because again, a lot of GPS sensors have a tendency to look at the chronic workload, the acute workload based off the distance that you traveled, right? And we know that, linemen, their acute or chronic workload is going to be them running into each other and doing different things like that. So are you gathering data? How much data are you using from that GPS, or are you looking at other metrics as well to help with those guys that are in your position group?
So the big thing for the O-line, D-line, based off of the GPS data, would be their accel and decel load.
Okay.
Just because that'll show, how many, without knowing how many plays they're running or how many reps they're taking during individual, things like that. But the biggest tool that I'll use for that group is the force plate. I'll be able to see, Hawking Dynamics is the force plate that we have. It's a little bit different than Bald. But being able to look at their time to take off, that's a big metric that I look at. If their time to take off is up, that means they're fatigued right away. Gotcha. They can jump the same height. They can even jump higher. But if it's taking them longer to complete that jump, then I know that they're fatigued, and maybe we need to back off a little bit. But at the end of the day, when they step in the weight room, I ask them how they're feeling. And I can look, especially because our training is a little bit different. We work out on Sundays, so they're coming in the day after the game, and it's not just the game that's taking a toll on them. It's what they do after the game, and things like that. So I'll be able to see when they walk in, if it's going to be a good training day or if it's going to be bad.
I can always tell that on power snatch. I can tell when somebody did something over the weekend because the central nervous system is just not moving.
A little fried. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Coach, bringing those same questions back to the high school sector, what technology is available to you? What do you use to help yourself out on that front, or if you have access to it at all?
Yeah, we do. We got 30 units catapult. Actually looking at the Connexon because we have an indoor practice facility now. And this was our first year with it. So all we really did is just collect the data.
Yeah.
I ran around, talked to a lot of people. This guy and one of our guys was that was at LSU, went to Baylor, and talked to the guys at Duke. Feely, who was a Ball State guy, and then Jeremy Jacobs, that was at LSU, went to Duke as well. So basically, they said, "Hey, just collect your data the first year. Just see what the actual loads are for your practices and your games, and then start planning your year around getting them ready for that." We've got iPads at every rack. We're going to be rolling that out January the 8th, and we got Team Builder on it. So all of that, it's really, I call it just dissemination of information, because what used to be with these guys, they knew their maxes, and I could throw a percent chart out and like, hey, we're doing sets of 5 at 70% of your max, and they just looked at it and went.
Mm-hmm.
And as the program got bigger, more people didn't even remember their maxes, right? Mm-hmm. So then I was projecting maxes on the wall and trying to maintain that system. That's why I said it's a small school program that grew big, and it got to where just getting the information out is, for groups that big, we got to do something here. The information's just not getting out. They're not getting it. Mm-hmm. So we invested in. We got 31 iPads mounted with the Team Builder, so all their stuff will be there for them. We've got GymAware for VBT stuff, which I like a lot. Found some really cool stuff with it. I've had friends that have been playing this stuff all the way back to the Louis Simmons years and the Tendos and stuff. Mm-hmm. Guys in weightlifting clubs and powerlifting clubs and boutique gyms around Indianapolis, and they found all kinds of neat stuff over time that's not really published or anything, but there's a lot of cool things that's I'm interested in getting into it with my more advanced kids.
Yeah, that's awesome. Give me one thing that you're looking forward to using with that technology to be able to help out your kids with.
Well, I'm still looking at. He was monkeying around with using it for the jump scores and stuff to try to make a poor man's force plate.
Okay.
At least an indicator sometime, which you can hook the bar. You could stick or a light bar and throw the GymAware tether on it, and it'll give you scores off of that. But one of the things that I've been playing with for a couple of years, maybe probably 3 or 4 years, been putting them on power snatches at 50% of their max, and telling them, hey, I want this 3 meters a second, and to watch them, like week 1, they can't hit 3 meters a second, and by week 4 they'll be hitting 3.4, 3.5, and then I'll take singles up that after that, and put a limit on it and say 2.4, 2.5. Mm-hmm. And I just had a sophomore kid just this past week. His max was 70, and he had been hitting those 50%. And I'm like, hey, let's work it up. And he snatched 80 kilos. So, wow. Up 10 kilos. And I had the same thing with a senior linebacker last year. He was snatching 90 kilos, so 200 pounds. And it got his speed up, and he snatched 100 kilos, so up 20 pounds. Just get the speed up. Which to me, that's an indicator of the amount of force you're actually putting into the ground, which is really what we're looking for,
Yeah, absolutely. So those the three, your 3 meters per second, your 3.4, is that your peak velocity that you're looking at on the GymAware metric
peak,
there?
Yeah, that's peak. Yeah, peak velocity. Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, that's
you got it's got to be somebody that their movement is pretty ingrained.
Right.
Because it's easy to, if there's not ingrained, they'll turn it into a muscle snatch, and it's kind of easy to get a high velocity on a muscle snatch because it comes so late. And it comes so late in the movement that the lift is over and they just finish it with a wrist snap and get the 3 meters a second. That's not what we're doing. So it's got to be an ingrained power snatch type movement that, they're doing the movement the same. And that's why I kind of even because you're going to fail a snatch around 1.9, probably somewhere around there. And so I'll put it high at 2.4, 2.5, just because I don't want to push them over that threshold where they start to do it wrong to do more.
Right.
So it's there's a lot of little things that go into that I figured out over a lot of years of doing this. But that's kind of stuff I'm excited to play with and see if I can push that even into the squats and stuff. I'm still concerned with them just like manipulating the numbers, changing the movement to manipulate the numbers. Because I see some people that use it a lot, and that's what I see. The kid jumping at the top of the squat, basically, that'll still affect the average, the average velocity because the top end gets figured in too.
Yep. Yeah, that's it. We just again center somewhere stuck in the middle between these two experiences. And we were fortunate enough to just invest in Bitru for all of our racks, and it does not give as much information as GymAware probably does, but still a great alternative. And that was one thing that we noticed with some of our athletes that had never used it before. They got so concerned with that number that came up on the screen, and some of our strength movements started to turn into some weird looking plyometric movements, right? Like we had this squat and someone tried to jump with it. I was like, okay, wait, hang on a second, guys. We've lost all perspective. We had an RDL that turned into like a clean pull. I'm like, no, hang on. We've lost what we're trying to do on this.
He's got, Connor has, they used a lot perch and stuff, tendos and perch at LSU. So I'm sure he's got thoughts on that.
It was kind of the same thing as like they would try to manipulate the movement, especially on a squat. They would try to manipulate it at the top and jump the bar up, and it would rise. We use a lot of mean velocity or average velocity, and that would drive it sky high. So it would look like you're in absolute strength, and you get to the top and you pop the bar up. Well, it's at 0.85. Well, you got your number, but it's not.
You can't go heavier.
It's not the goal that we're trying to get out of the velocity threshold.
Almost look at the bottom end, the lowest velocity.
Yeah. For both of you, in your experience with it, have you primarily reserved that type of training modality to just your advanced athletes because they actually understand what actually a squat should look like and what a snatch should look like and all of those things?
That's what I'm going to do with it. And primarily, again, on Olympic stuff. So it's not just me saying it's got to be faster. They can put a number to faster. But it's got to be somebody that understands the lift and is proficient in the lift enough to even know what I'm saying, And I'll play around with it on strength stuff and maybe even just more of like a rep counter.
That's fair.
Yeah, we used it for as soon as anyone walked in the weight room. We used it. Like I said earlier, I trained beach volleyball as well, and we used it with them. We tried putting velocity thresholds on them and doing different things, but you got to revert back to just your coach's eye. Teach them the movement first and tell them that's not what we're looking for. That's not what we're looking for. And so they'll actually do it the right way. But, they are 18 to 23-year-olds and they're going to try to manipulate it as best they can.
Highly talented, highly athletic kids. They're very competitive.
Oh, absolutely. No question. Okay, coaches, I know I've taken up now at least an hour of your time, if not a little bit more. So one, I appreciate it. Thank you all for coming on. For if people are interested in finding out more about you, where you're at, different things like that, where should they look? What do you want to plug? Anything like that?
Well, on Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, is CP Bulldog Strength at We Are CP. Those are all caps. And then on Instagram is at Hoosier Barbell. That's the weightlifting team.
Twitter for me is all lowercase Conrad Andras. And then Instagram, let's see what I am. My name is. I actually have no idea.